Hey, what's going on, everybody? David Noy with Speakeasy HR, presented by Payroll Partners. We are back at it for a brand new episode. We're winding down the year of 2025, and I'm so excited to have this guest on today. It's pretty cold where I am, so if you are trying to battle the cold weather as we are in the Midwest, hopefully everyone's staying warm and inside. So again, my name is David Noy. I'm the host of Speakeasy HR. Started this last year, and I'm at episode 55. Today, we're in for a real treat with my guest on, and cannot wait to dive into her topic. So, Lilith Christiansen, welcome to Speakeasy HR. How are you today?
I'm great, David. Thanks for having me. How are you doing today?
Staying warm. It's been really cold. Kids' sports are getting canceled every day. School has delays, and it's that time of year. And generally, where I'm at in Kentucky, we don't get a lot of snow before Christmas.
Yeah.
So we had a couple of winter storms already. And, looking at 4 days from now, it's going to be 55. So today, I think the high was like 9. And then for Thursday, it's going to be 55 again. So
Yep.
that's just the way it is around the
Yeah.
Midwest.
We're in Virginia, and so we're about a day behind you, and it is freezing cold right now. We didn't get too much yesterday, but it was about an inch, and then it was just so cold, everything froze. So a couple delays around here today, and then looking forward to those 50s by the end of the week.
Yeah, and, I don't know if you're traveling for the holidays, but I'm on Christmas Day, and I'm always curious how the weather's gonna be, and it's gonna be, 45 and raining, so, not gonna have to worry about snow that day, so that's okay,
No, I
but,
guess that's good, but all those kids that
anyway.
get new bikes, will be a little disappointed they have to wait a day or 2 before they can try them out.
Absolutely. So if anybody listening is new to Speakeasy HR, welcome. Thanks for spending a little time out of your day with us. I have a brand new blog out there for week 50. It's reflection. So as we wind down the year, I've been going all year with word of the week and trying to just give everybody a really easy read, word of the week to get you going for the week. So again, go check that out, and all the content, previous episodes, you can find out there, the YouTube channel, LinkedIn channel. So subscribe and get ready for really an exciting next few months into next year and everything that I have going on with the podcast. So Lilith, we had connected back. We were just talking about before we came on, and it was earlier this year. I listened to a podcast you were on, Alder Hour, in February, and I said, "Hey, would love to connect." And so we started chatting and trying to figure out when you could come on. So we've had this booked out for quite some time, and
Mm.
so we are here now. It's December 15th and episode 55. So great to have you on. If you are watching live, thanks for tuning in. And if you have a question along the way, just throw it in the chat or where you're watching from, and would love to hear from you. If you want to find other podcasts like Speakeasy HR, I don't know why that got so fast. You can go to workdefine.com. There's 60 plus podcasts out there on workforce, HR, tech, payroll, all sorts of things in the workforce. So go check out workdefine.com. So Lilith, if you want to just start and tell everybody about just your background, and you're working for the last couple of years with the HumanGenuity. So tell us all a little bit about your background and what you're working on into next year.
Sure. So when I think about kind of everywhere I've been and worked over the last many years, we'll just say that, it's kind of been about two-thirds in consulting in one capacity or another, and then one-third being on the functional side or leading operations. I started my career out as a management consultant doing general strategy consulting, competitive intelligence, and a lot of marketing strategy.
Okay.
And after I got my MBA, I went to a startup to lead marketing for that organization. It was really actually a roll up, and then turned out this was more of a turnaround than a startup.
Yeah.
And that's where I really learned my passion for the people side of the business. We had a great strategy, but we couldn't get anywhere without the right people with the right skills and the right roles.
Yeah.
So from there, I joined Booz Allen Hamilton and kind of built up that strength I had in consulting, but started to build out more of my organization development and people program experience. Went on to lead people at that original consulting firm I started at, went back on the client side, did a lot of work in the space of new hire onboarding, and then went on to an HR tech company where I started up a consulting arm there, and then had the opportunity to lead product, which was really kind of the pinnacle of being able to take the experience I had had both leading HR and being a consultant and really understanding what those customers need and turning that into defining where we were headed with our product and how to meet our customers' needs through the technology. When I decided to leave that and launch my own consultancy, it was really to get back on the people side. As much as I enjoyed the tech side, I just felt like I was a little more removed from being able to have that direct impact to the people. And so went back to consulting, and here I am with HumanGenuity.
Very good. So what's overall is kind of your main focus with that, and kind of what have you learned about it as you started for the last couple of years?
Mm-hmm. Well, what I've seen is that there's been a real need and a shift in terms of what traits and skills are most important at the leadership ranks, really starting to lean into a new set of skills that are less based on kind of competitiveness or assertiveness and much more around collaboration and empathy. And with that comes a culture shift, and being able to help organizations tap into the natural strengths that they have with their people, but bring to them a new set of thinking, maybe a new methodology to help them come along in that journey around new types of leadership, but also support their growth really throughout every career transition point during their employment. So moving from maybe what we called in the past and what my book was on, onboarding, to now have an Everboarding program. So how can we support their growth and development at every step, every milestone in their careers?
Yeah. Going back when you were in grade school, was there something that you wanted to pursue and be after school? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Yeah, well, my fun dream was to be a rockette, but I never reached the height requirement. So when those dreams were dashed, I really wanted to be a Supreme Court justice, honestly.
Okay.
So that was something for a long time. I was pursuing both um, government as well as the business side. It was kind of, I couldn't decide between either one of them. But then once I got into a business career, I just loved it more and more, and where I found myself today then.
Okay. Very good. So what would be maybe the biggest piece of advice, most impactful piece of advice would you say that you've been given over your years of working?
Mhm. I think each maybe kind of season of one's career, there's probably one piece of advice that meant a lot and was really impactful at that point in time, and then
Yeah.
it kind of changes as your position and your impact changes. So I'm going to pick maybe the most recent one that I think has been really effective for me, from a coach that I've been working with. And it's as simple as it sounds, I have found it to be really effective to kind of get out of my head.
Yeah.
Sometimes, as a consultant and someone who's very data focused, I can think a lot about a challenge and want to assess it from both directions, or every direction I can come up
Yeah.
with. And that sometimes makes it hard for me to get going and start producing something. So this little trick was her 5-minute rule, and was like, just start on something for 5 minutes and see how it goes. And then most oftentimes I find myself totally in the moment and able to stick with that flow, and be able to accomplish what it was I was targeting, rather than hemming and hawing. Should I do this? Should I do that? Or which path do I want to take? Just make a decision, run with it for 5 minutes, and then inevitably I keep going down that path.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. I always ask that question, and it's always interesting to hear what people say about that. So before we get to your topic. I always have the fun, world famous envelope icebreaker game. So let's transition to that. All right. Whoa. So we have 15 envelopes. Lilith, if you have a favorite number or one you want to pick out, we will dive into what it has.
All right. Let's go with 13. That's the date of our anniversary.
Okay. There we go. Number 13 it is. So we got in here. All right. If your career had a mascot, what would it be?
Wow, I love that. I don't know if she qualifies as a mascot, but I guess who I think about and try to channel is Wonder Woman.
Okay.
Being a child of the 80s and her power on the screen, and I really stand by that whole get in your pose and be ready to present and conquer the world. So I'm going to go with good old Wonder Woman, Linda Carter, of course.
There you go. Well, I've got my fun little, if you see it, my mini air horn. So
Yes.
I'm going to give you a little bit of a shout out there with the mini air
Fabulous.
horn. So well done. So your topic is fascinating, and I cannot wait to dive into this. So if you're watching live, thanks for joining today on this cold Monday in December. So we're going to dive into that just after a few comments from our presenting sponsor, Payroll Partners. So hang tight, grab something to drink, and we'll be back in 1 minute and we'll get into it.
Finding a new employee takes time and money. For one position on a single job board, you could easily spend a minimum of $5 to $10 a day advertising a job post. It's worth noting that the average time it takes to hire a new employee is 36 days. However, it can take longer than that. You could find yourself paying hundreds of dollars a month for a single job board. And if you're using multiple job boards for multiple positions, this could add up to thousands of dollars a month. There is a much simpler and more affordable way of finding the right candidate. At Payroll Partners, we offer an applicant tracking system to help manage your hiring process. Our ATS is customizable, allowing you to decide which days you want to run the job and when to close it so you don't break the bank. And this feature lets you e-blast your network, posting jobs on multiple boards at once, all managed in one location. Payroll Partners, elevating your payroll and HR experience.
So if you are in the process of looking for new payroll HR technology, check us out. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Would be glad to hear about your situation, see how we can help along the way, and maybe we'll work together in 2026. So, all right, Lilith. So like I said, we connected earlier this year, started talking about when you'd come on Speakeasy HR, and we secured that date a while ago. And so we started talking about what topic you would have and what you'd bring to the show. And so we came up with this Everboarding and Leadership 2.0, the future of people development. And it's maybe along the lines of how AI is going to shape our workforce in the future. But how do you define Everboarding, and why is the old first 90 days approach really no longer, enough for today's workforce?
Yeah. Well, so when you think of traditional onboarding, that's really just a moment in time. Let's get somebody ready to go in their new job. And when we think of all of the changes that are happening today, and AI is a great example of it, like that first 90 days just isn't sufficient with the pace of change, of development, and new trends that are coming on that require employees to be evolving more and more. And so Everboarding is thinking about it as a more continuous experience or even ecosystem that provides a intentional level of support to the employees at every career transition point. So it doesn't just need to be that one major milestone of starting a new job, but it could be moving on to a new project. and
Yeah.
then needing to understand, well, what's different about this team, or the focus and the objectives of this team than the one that I left. What's success going to look like here that's different where it was before, and being intentional around supporting that transition point.
So, what are the most common misconceptions you see about onboarding, and how does Everboarding really help correct them, would you say?
Mhm. So, one, I'd say with onboarding is even in the way that we talked about that first question, 90 days. Like,
Yeah.
even onboarding itself, really, if you're doing it in a best practice driven way, is you should think about it as the first year.
Hmm.
And that's in order to allow all of the things that happen over the course of a business cycle to happen at least once. So, think about all those firsts that are going to happen during that year of employment, is thinking about it in that way, at least for onboarding. And then similarly with everboarding, okay, maybe it's not the first year when you move to a new job, but it's applying those same tactics or program elements, let's say, where you're connecting folks with a new network. You're helping them understand the strategy or context of the role, and there's some training involved there.
Yeah.
That's another actual misconception around onboarding, that it's just training. Training equals onboarding.
Yeah.
It certainly is a key component, but it's not the be all end all. We really need to support thinking more broadly around how to build trust, how to build connections, and doing that on a regular basis. Let's see, another one that I see a lot is that folks think that it's just HR's job. That's why we have them in the business, is they're a center of expertise and they can handle all of this and ensure that our employees are ready to go at every stage. But in reality, lots more people, and really the whole company's responsibility is onboarding, but it's especially that manager's role. It's really up to them to provide the right kind of context and experience, get them connected with the team, that provides that kind of emotional and physiological like support that
Yeah.
the employee has. So that's really critical, is not just letting it to HR, but really recognizing managers and everyone else on the team has a role to play in onboarding and everboarding especially.
Right. Yeah, everybody's experience will be different, and I think what we see now is 5 generations working,
Mhm.
and when someone gets a new job, and it's maybe their first couple of jobs out of school, they're in their 20s, they're starting a family, and then you have people that are obviously down their career, longer into their career, and they've been working for 25 years, and they get almost the same job, but the 2 different people have such a different experience. So it's not only important to have that philosophy of that cycle, but to obviously get feedback from people throughout the year, because and you ask how people like their job, and you're gonna get all kinds of things, hoping that most say they like it, they they enjoy
Mhm.
it, they feel respected, so but there is a lot of disconnect. And so where do you see the biggest disconnect between employees, and what they need and what organizations currently provide?
Yeah, well, one thing I think really gets illustrated by that demographic example that you gave. And it's the challenge that if a company is going to invest in an everboarding or an onboarding, that they may think we can just create one program or one process and that's going to fit everybody. And as you just illustrated, David, that experience and the needs of someone who's in their mid 20s is going to be really different than someone's in their mid 40s or mid 50s in terms of what really gets them motivated. How do they want to have an impact? What support do they need? So that's one, I think, is that misconception around one size is going to fit everything. Another disconnect that I see is often, employees really want connection and belonging. And that means not only kind of with their people or who they're working with, but also that connection to the business, that they can understand how their day to day connects to the overall success of the organization. But a lot of times we see companies really focused on efficiency, speed, output. They're really focused on if I just get them a computer quickly and I train them on this job, they'll be able to hit the ground running quickly and I can start seeing output. But in reality, you give them a little more context, you help them understand how it connects to the next person down the line. That's really when you can start seeing faster times to productivity and even higher levels of productivity overall, because they really get it. So I think the more that organizations can actually think a bit about making a connection to meaning and purpose instead of just being focused on transactions and tasks, I think that's where you can really start to see the difference and the benefit of a shift like this.
Yeah. Leadership 2.0, it's part of your top shelf topic. It's a powerful phrase. So what does it mean to you, and how does it differ from the leadership styles that dominated the last decade?
Mhm. Yeah, I think this is a really interesting one that a lot of thought leaders are talking more and more about. Don Barden is one person in particular that I've started following a lot of his content in this front. And, a lot of times, maybe the easiest way to think about it is it was more of like masculine leadership traits that was what took us where we needed to be, at a point in time in the past. So that's things like being assertive, having really strengthening the competitiveness of people and being more independent, focused on control. And I think that worked, and we've seen success of businesses for a long time now under that model.
Yeah.
But where leadership 2.0 comes in, and I think in particular at this point in time, is we're dealing with a lot more uncertainty. And the importance of, as AI is changing the face of so many workplaces, there's a real need to really focus in on the humanity side of things. So leading with more empathy, more collaboration, flexibility, and empowering individuals rather than just telling them what to do or controlling their every task. I think that this shift more into the future is going to be around a relational presence for folks, and having more psychological safety, as well with teams, and empowering others to really take the organization forward to the next phase of success.
Yeah. So if a company wants to start building that culture tomorrow, what's the first practical step they should take?
Well, first, I would say is take stock and choose kind of one moment in time, like one part of the employee life cycle, and start there
Yeah.
to make a difference and be able to define and make a space for learning to happen on a regular basis. And so this doesn't necessarily mean you've got to like find more time in the day to send people to training or make learning super formal. It's really around embedding it into daily work. And providing, let's say, when you've got a project kickoff or you're going to do touch bases, status reports on projects, let's add into those moments in time a little more questioning, and asking the people on the team, what are you learning through the course of this project? Where are you having the biggest challenge? And that type of just creating the opportunity for some continuous learning and exchange back and forth is a really good place to get started. First, with shifting that culture, but making it part of just everyday conversation, everyday business operations to pull in this opportunity to learn and reflect. I think that's going to be a way to start seeing a difference very quickly.
Okay. So I'm with the founder and chief consultant of HumanGenuity. Lilith Christiansen is joining me. So if you are watching, have a question, jump in the chat and mention your question and we will get to it. So how can leaders, Lilith, integrate ongoing employee engagement without
Mhm.
like one more thing on their plate and just adding stuff to everybody's day?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's a challenge. I definitely agree with that. So I think it really starts with maybe more of a mindset shift around thinking of a manager or a leader as being more of a coach rather than only focusing on the project's tasks, right? So making development part of the way that they lead naturally rather than only setting aside certain times to focus on development. And so that does come in, to building it into those regular routines, project kickoffs, debriefs, weekly one-on-ones, and taking advantage of just moments that pop up to take a breath and say, well, what can we learn from this? I think thinking of those just micro moments that allow that manager or the leader and the individual to kind of take something away from that experience, and then it doesn't become like something extra that they're doing, but being able to just bring it into the conversation, start asking more questions, in fact, I think is really another element of it. And that kind of conversation and experience will start to build more confidence between the employee and the leader. They become more clear on what their role is and what success looks like. All of that tends to build more confidence and connection. And then the leader is less around supervising a task and more around coaching and supporting the growth of that individual.
Yeah. Being a manager and a leader is hard. I feel like people, if they haven't ever lived it and been in that situation before, middle management has one of the more difficult jobs in an
Yeah.
organization, right? I mean, they're dealing with the upper management and the executives. They're trying to manage their staff and keep them engaged and motivated. And so there's just a lot on their plate, and it's a lot. So I love
Mhm.
the everboarding part, and I love how you bring that all together, because it really is well beyond 90 days, and it ties in with everything you're going into right now. So looking into the future, what does a truly future ready employee life cycle look like in
Mhm.
2026 and beyond?
So I think it really starts with changing that mindset. It's not a one size fits all, but in the future, we'll see it around an experience that's adaptive
Mm.
and personalized, right? It's not static. It's not solely focused on one's role, but starts to look more broadly at key moments in time.
Yep.
Being a new hire, onboarding certainly one of them, but how about when maybe they transfer to a new team or move functional areas or get a new client assignment if you're in a client facing role? Even I think one that's not often thought about is when someone returns from leave. So perhaps you've been on medical leave for a while, you come back. Well, the strategy could be different. The people on your team could be different. And
Yep.
it's really important to think about, well, how do we prepare someone for that moment? And even what their needs are may be very different as well. Maybe they're used to being in the office 100% of the time. Now it's a hybrid work environment. Well, how do we help them get adjusted to that?
Yeah.
So I think continuous and two-way feedback is also another element about what that future development looks like, that we're not saving providing feedback or having a review to be once a year or twice a year, but really something that happens very frequently, and that it is two-way. I think that's important as well. That a manager is coaching and giving feedback to an individual, and that individual is asking for what they need and able to articulate that, because I think that that's a shift on the individual as well, is recognizing that I can't just wait for my manager to tell me everything I need to know. I
Hmm.
need to start being proactive as well. So
Right.
I think it's those key elements around being continuous, thinking more two-way, and taking advantage of what those milestones are in a career.
Right. I'm going off script a little bit here. I gave you these questions to kind of look through, and I thought of one that, as I'm thinking about the people I interact with in a lot of different business sizes, but think about like a small business, right? Under
Mhm.
50 employees. the companies that may not have HR on staff, the organizations that they have management, but maybe these managers aren't fully trained. They were put into a role as a manager. And then how it is for an organization that has 10,000 employees, how they bring in new hires and how they onboard and everboard, it's going to be different. So is there some kind of advice you would maybe give a company that is a small or mid-sized business, and how to apply some of this in their day-to-day versus like a larger organization
Yeah.
with hybrid and remote work?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you asked that, David, because I think there are more people out there probably listening today that are at those smaller organizations. And sometimes it's easy to think when we're describing a new talent program that it requires a lot of people to implement it or a lot of dollars to put behind it. And that really isn't necessarily the case. I mean, it's great when that exists at a 10,000 person firm, right? So what I would say to them is first is understanding what the key content areas are for an everboarding program. So that's paying attention to the culture elements and how we help an employee understand the culture and thrive in it. The second piece is around the networking element. So, how do we connect them with people in the business or other stakeholders so that they know who's who? It's around providing context to the strategy so that the individual knows how what they're doing every single day connects to company success and really creating that connection. It's around providing career support at a continuous basis because as you pointed out earlier, what someone needs in their early stages of career is going to be really different when they're a 20-year veteran. So being purposeful on what they need when they need it, and then of course the training pieces. So those are
Yeah.
like the content elements, I guess, is what I call them. But the way that a smaller organization can bring that to life without a heavy lift, I would say first is to understand, well, what are some of those elements of the culture? What matters to us? What's important? What does success look like? And just
Yep.
creating at least a script that managers can refer to in order to talk about the culture. So that would be one piece. And the more like information or a checklist that you can give a manager, that's a super easy way to start delivering a little more of a consistent experience. As you said, a lot of times managers haven't been properly trained themselves. Maybe they got to that management level because they were a really good individual contributor. So the more
Right.
tools you can give that manager, the more that that will help with the process. I
Right.
think also in a smaller organization, relying on team learning, so peer learning, that doesn't cost anything, but it does have a big benefit when two different individuals are joining or starting a new role at the same time, setting them up to be able to talk with each other, share lessons learned is another kind of low cost way. And establishing buddies as well or mentors and utilizing that
Yep.
as part of the process. It can help on the admin side, making sure that that person has the equipment that they need, that they've got a desk if it's an in-office and experience, but then also they help on the network piece, right? And there's an easy person that they can go to have some questions answered. So those would be a few of the things that I would say are budget neutral that can really help thinking about how to employ some of these everboarding
Right.
philosophies into a program.
Right. Yeah, going back even to pre-hire and going through the recruiting process with applicants, right? You have managers involved most times with interviews and talking to people. They're always looking for people that they feel like they can manage and train and support and develop. You're not looking for people that are going to be a challenge, right?
Right.
Like you want to have a team that works well, gets the jobs done, fulfills all their expectations. So it's like, in my role, anytime I'm interviewing people, I always try to get a good sense of their culture, how they learn, what kind of management style they're looking for, and really try to align that. And so as much as I can do that and personalize it, it's going to help that manager, it's going to help that new hire, and potentially retain that new hire for quite some
Mhm.
time, knowing that we have alignment and that that person understands what they're getting into and that they're going to like the job. Because
Yeah.
some people get into a job and they're like, this is not what I was cut out to do, or this is not what
Mhm.
I was told.
You are
And
so right, David. I mean, and what you just described, I think a lot of companies don't always get right either. It's
right,
so important to have that alignment in the recruiting process, that you're talking accurately about what it's like to work here, and what are we most proud of at the company, and what are some of the things we need to work on, right?
right.
That it might be hard or counterintuitive to talk about some of the opportunity areas, but it's a really good way to make sure you're setting expectations properly.
Yep.
Otherwise, people show up on day one and they're like, wait a minute, this isn't what I signed up for, right?
It's I always find it fascinating when I sit in an interview and I ask them, hey, do you have any questions? And they're like, no, I don't think I have any. And they didn't ask about culture. They didn't ask about management style. So anybody watching, if you are in the job market looking for a job, I strongly suggest you ask a question about culture. What is it like working here? Why do you enjoy working here? You ask everybody in that meeting. And if there's
Mhm,
three people, they're they're all going to have a different response to that question. What's the culture like? Why do you like it here? What's the best thing you like about the job? Because again, the applicant is trying to find the right fit for the employee for their next company. The company's trying to find the right fit for that role. And if you can align that all, you're 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 going to be more successful in hiring people that are going to stay around and like the job.
mhm,
And the manager's not going to be back to you and like, I can't believe we hired this person. It's been a nightmare. And so again, just for what it's worth, if you're looking for a job, ask about culture, ask about environment, manager style. What's the manager style like?
mhm,
So, all right. So with AI, automation, hybrid work really reshaping and always changing. So the expectations are different. What new skills or competencies do you think leaders absolutely need to develop, to stay effective?
mhm. So, with all of those changes, I think empathy and emotional intelligence is really becoming more and more important, especially across distributed teams.
Right.
And for leaders to be able to think about, like, oh, well, what if I'm in that person's shoes? How are they going to receive this information that I'm sharing? Or what do I need to think about in terms of when's the best time to communicate with them, that they can really understand what I'm talking about or be focused.
Right.
um, Collaboration and influence, I think, are some other kind of new skills or competencies that are important, particularly, again, maybe even because you're not necessarily with everybody all the time, right? We can't rely on proximity, or I
Right.
can come to you and make sure that you understand the instructions I've given you. Or there's so many more dotted line responsibilities as well. You might not have that like hierarchy to rely on. You really have to influence others in order to help shape the work in the way that you want it to go.
Absolutely.
I think tech literacy is also really important, right? As a leader, we can't rely on only the newest people in the workforce to be the ones that understand the latest technologies.
Yep.
We need to be using them ourselves, using them responsibly, and that helps us to be able to lead the business as well. You've got to be able to understand the opportunities and the risks that come with it. Doesn't mean we got to be an expert, but we've got to know enough based on using our expert judgment, to make the call sometimes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We talked a little bit about this when it comes to smaller organizations not having a big budget, but I'm going to ask another question, and maybe it triggers a different response. So when you look at a resource limited company, and maybe they're still adopting this kind of concept or trying to,
Mhm.
in this kind of situation, how can they adopt those kind of principles to create meaningful impact and be able to really see the effectiveness of it?
Mhm.
um, And when it comes to really recognition and celebrating the milestones and the little
Yeah.
wins, and
Mhm.
so what kind of advice would you give there?
Well, I'll kind of work backwards since you mentioned the recognition piece because we
Yeah.
hadn't really talked about that yet. But that is a really easy place to get leverage from. Let's recognize that they had a great client meeting or that report they put together was really good. Well, let's explain why it was really good. Doesn't
Yeah.
take that much longer, but
Yeah.
looking for those moments to celebrate, use it as a learning opportunity will be both helping their development and reaffirming that they joined the right organization. It builds their confidence. And each time you do that, that allows them to start wanting to stretch more or take on new opportunities. um, I think there's also, since you mentioned the budget piece of it, it's taking stock of what the company already has at hand and trying to take advantage of it so that you're using your calendar tool effectively. This might sound super simple, but you'd be amazed how many people don't like think about, well, let's just put 3 meetings on their calendar in
Yep.
advance.
Yep.
One where they can meet their manager, one where they can meet the team, and maybe one where they're meeting some stakeholder that relies on their work or has an input into their work. Again, really low lift effort, but
Yeah.
think of how much better it is for that employee to now like, oh, I know exactly where I'm going to go at this point in time and who I'm going to meet, and it's already set up for me.
Yeah.
And even some tools like Slack, for example, has some plugins that you can use that's bringing in AI that could do mentor matching for your employees. So if you've
Oh, yeah.
already got those tools, think about what you can use them for to
Yeah.
help with this kind of process. Maybe even answering, what are the questions HR gets or that managers get most often? Well, let's create a knowledge base of that. Can we use AI ourselves to help have those FAQs be ready and accessible to the employees?
Yeah. Yeah. We had a comment from somebody watching. It doesn't have the name listed here, which is funny. But I can see it on my phone, which is really, it's Eddie Mitchell. She said, Lilith, hi, it's so good to hear you. Glad I caught this insightful podcast. We connected over this very topic back in 2013. I love your continued expertise and thought leadership on strategic onboarding and everboarding. Yes. So thank you for that comment.
Yeah, thank you.
Uh,
It is something I reflect on as well, that when we wrote the book so long ago, it was such a new idea then. And now to see the evolution of it, how organizations have adopted that philosophy and have new
yeah.
techniques and new tools that they're bringing to the table, but yet, this that main foundation of it really still is the same, but let's apply it at more opportunity to really create that better, more continuous learning development experience.
So you said the book you wrote, um, when was that released? How long ago?
It was in 2010, actually.
2010. Okay.
So Successful Onboarding is the name of the book.
Successful onboarding. Okay.
Mhm.
People can find it on Amazon and
Yep, still
anywhere.
available on Amazon, absolutely. And maybe this will motivate me to write a sequel to it because I do think being able to apply it in this everboarding
Oh,
concept
yeah.
really takes it to the next level.
Yep.
And there's so many new techniques, as we've already talked about today, that could benefit, from a refresher on that philosophy if I, put my
Yeah.
head and hand to
There you
writing that
go.
all out.
There
Mhm.
you go. Be on the lookout next year, everybody.
Yeah,
Uh,
let's see. I guess if we set it here first, I got to
right.
commit to it, right?
It's like committing for running a marathon or something, It's like
There you go.
once
There
you
you go.
start, you gotta commit to it. So, all right. So, one final question for you, Lilith. So, for leaders listening who want to elevate their people strategy right now, what's one shift, mindset, behavior that will create the biggest impact, positive impact over time?
Mhm. So I think, and we touched on it a little bit, but I guess to really hammer it home, I'd say the mindset shift is to move from leaders thinking about managing tasks to developing humans, right?
Yeah.
Really focusing in on that human side. And when managers see their role more so as helping their employees or teammates thrive, that shift then that takes it from, did you get this done, are the tasks complete performance, to one around culture and retention and like self-driven performance. I think that's where we'll start to see a lot more benefits coming to the organization, higher levels of productivity, longer retention on folks,
Yeah.
and a supportive knowledge transfer as well. I think that is going to be even more important as we have an aging workforce and more will start to leave. Like, how to carry on the right types of traditions, culture, and knowledge that comes from those employees that are going to exit will be really important. So creating more of those kind of peer-to-peer networks, and managers thinking more differently again around developing the people and a little less on just task execution.
Yep. So to learn more about Lilith's work, human-genuity.com is the website. It's on the screen. And you've got a special offer for people who are listening and are interested. So there's a QR code on the screen for those watching. It is a 30-minute clarity and momentum session. So Lilith, do you want to say anything else about this offer that you have?
Yeah. So this is really around a fairly efficient conversation between the two of us to get an understanding on what maybe that biggest challenge is that your organization is facing, or that you are personally with trying to drive forward a new approach to leadership or changing around the culture in your organization. So we'll get clear on what that challenge is, and then through the conversation, identify a couple quick tips that'll allow you to drive momentum going forward in your organization. So I look forward to speaking with as many of you are interested over the next few weeks, or wait until the new year. That would be fantastic.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for that offer, and definitely suggest people going out there to spend a little time and share a little bit more with Lilith and see how she can help you and your organization. So, anything else you want to mention, Lilith, about your upcoming work, or anything that people should look out for next year from you other than a new book?
Yeah. Well,
Joking.
I have not
Joking.
started writing, so don't quote
Joking.
your breath on the book yet. But I am definitely going to be putting out more thought leadership around these topics.
Yeah.
I'm excited to meet with more and more people and hear stories of how we can illustrate and share with each other how
Yep.
these principles have come to life and had a positive impact in their organizations. So keep an eye out either through the website or follow me on LinkedIn, is probably where I'm most active with some of that content right now.
Yep.
And really just look forward to continuing the conversation and evolving this next year.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate your time. I learn from every guest that comes on. So I wish you all the best in your holidays, and stay healthy, and have a blessed holiday season, end of the year, and hopefully we'll stay in touch. And you never know where this will take you and I with future connections and everything. So appreciate you coming on. And again, everybody, champions, as I say every episode, champions adjust, y'all. You got to adjust. You got to be open to adjusting, and everything's constant. Time doesn't
Yeah,
stop. So that's the
that's
only thing.
leadership 2.0 right there, being flexible and nimble.
That is right. Well, great. Well, thanks again for your time. I wish everybody a happy holiday. We have one more episode next Monday, the 22nd, with a brand new guest. And then we'll be off for a little bit, but gear up, because next year is going to be fast. And I've got a lot going on with Speakeasy HR planned out all the way almost till next December. So a lot to be ready for next year. So thanks again, Lilith. And we'll talk to you real soon, and take care, everybody.
Great. Thanks, David. Take care, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye.